Okay, no worries. I've been trying to talk. So let me quickly check my audio once again. Just give me a minute. I don't know what's wrong with my audio. Just give me a minute, guys. Hello, 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 hello. Yes, guys. So I hope my audio should be clear now. I think there was a technical glitch because of which my audio was not great. Great, guys. So happy to know that my voice is perfect now. Great. Thank you so much, Nihal, Rahul, and Reflux to by informing me about that. So sorry for like that slight delay. I think there was some technical glitch. I just had to unmute and mute myself, and then it started working suddenly. There was I don't know why that did not work in the first place. But anyway, let's get started with this webinar today. And this is a topic which I really like doing, like how to strategize your prep in order to get to a 750 plus on GMAT. And just to give you a quick background about myself, those of you who are interacting with me for the very first time, I'm Piyush. I'm going to be your main host in the webinar. I have about 8+ years experience. In fact, now I can say I have about 9 years of experience mentoring students targeting MBA from tier 1 schools globally. I've helped a lot of students get into the Dream B schools like Wharton, INSEAD of the world, and so on. So I have a lot of experience in helping students. I have prepared myself and taught for both CAT and GMAT. CAT is one like Indian version of GMAT. You can think about that for Indian B schools. I have prepared for that. I have prepared for GMAT as well. I have scored a 740 on GMAT in my very first attempt, and I have scored a 99.9 percentile on CAT. So I have a lot of experience in this, and my journey was not easy. I actually struggled. I remember my very first GMAT verbal score test that I took. I got a 13 percentile in that. From there, I had to actually re-strategize, improve my understanding, take my skills to the next level to get here. And I have seen in the last 9 years, I have seen a lot of people struggling, and I know what it takes to actually improve your score. So that's what I'm going to help you with. Personally, I like analyzing trends. I like to work with data and to come up with strategies. What I like about data is the kind of information that it hides by purely using the data along with the right understanding of that subject matter, what kind of amazing insights can be drawn, and how those insights can actually turn out to become really life-changing strategies for some people. So that's what I personally feel I'm an expert at. But this is what we're going to discuss today, like how do we go about putting everything in a simple plan of action and getting to achieve it. Now, very quickly, I'm going to tell you what are the 3 sections to this webinar, how have I structured the entire webinar today. So in the beginning, I'll just take a couple of minutes for just telling about a little about GMATwiz, those who don't know about us. And then we'll move to the main part of the webinar. Obviously, that is where we spend 90%, like 90% of our time. About 1.5 hours is what we are going to spend over there, understanding how to build an action plan to prepare for the GMAT. And then we will actually open it up for an open-ended Q&A. So I just want to make sure that all the questions that you guys might have around your prep, I can answer them as much as possible today. So I'll be opening it up for an open-ended Q&A towards the end, but doesn't mean that you cannot ask me questions in between. If you have any questions in your mind, feel free to interrupt and ask me at any point of time. I would be more than glad to answer them. I like this webinar. I would like this webinar to be as interactive as possible. So please do that. Please keep it interactive. Okay. So very quickly about who we are at GMATwiz. What is that we do at GMATwiz? So at GMATwiz, we are very proud to say that we are world's only truly personalized course. A lot of courses in the industry actually call themselves personalized, but we have actually gone to the next level by creating amazing content on top of a very uniquely designed technology platform which kind of personalizes the learning. So just to give you a sense of what we do, every student at GMATwiz gets a personalized study plan. So if you're someone who worries about what to do tomorrow, you don't know what to do next and how can you proceed, you don't have a clear path in terms of your overall progress, GMATwiz is the perfect place for you. Everyone gets a personalized study plan which is integrated with the course. This is not a templatized plan which just tells you what to do. It is something which integrates everything. So it doesn't tell you just what to do, it even gives you those things on your platter. So that is something we do at GMATwiz. And the course that we serve is an adaptive course. It's not a static course, it's a dynamically adaptive course. What it means is the AI is powered to identify your real-time improvements and actually give you modules which help you to improve on those activities in real time. And anyone who takes up the entire course from GMATwiz also gets access to a dedicated mentor with whom they can connect every 15 to 20 days to discuss their progress and see whether they're headed in the right direction. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we are one of the GMATs Club, one of the most effective course today. Our average score improvement, if I have to talk about May 21, stands at 107 points, which is much higher than some of our competitors in the industry. So this was just a brief about GMATwiz. Let's go to the main part of the webinar today to understand how do most people start, how you should be starting. Okay, so just to ensure, if any one of you has any questions about GMATwiz, you can actually connect with me later on. I am not going to discuss those questions today, so don't put those questions on the Q&A right now. If you want to discuss them, you can always schedule a call with me using this link, or write to support@gmatwiz.com. But before we proceed, I just want to ensure that, okay, before I talk about the right study plan for you, let me ask you guys that, okay, how is that you have started your prep? So I see about 40 plus people in the webinar live today. Just want to ensure that all of us are on the same page. Just want to see how you guys have been preparing till now. What is the strategy that you have followed? And this is important because unless we know what should not be done, understanding what should be done sometimes is not possible. So we should also know what is right, what is wrong, both the things. So let's see how you guys are preparing. Let's understand that from you, and then I'll actually get into whether that makes sense or not. Whether what is wrong with that. If there's something wrong with that. If it is right, well and good. Kudos to you. Go ahead, do that. But if there's something wrong, I'll get to know and I'll be able to guide you in the right direction. So I would like to hear from you guys. Don't be shy. Just tell me how do you plan to start, or how have you started? Okay. So Rahul says I'm doing self prep and then I'm using GMAT Club questions. Okay, good. Ishan says I've started with the foundation classes and live lectures. Good, Ishan. What about others? So even before preparing for GMAT, should I take a mock test to check my knowledge? Good question, Yash. Yes and no. So I'll actually answer the question in a while. Don't worry about that. Using the official guides, books for preparation mostly is what Sakshi is doing. Live streaming, I'm not sure if that is your name. Probably that's the YouTube channel that you're from. But you started with concept basics plus OG questions. Okay, so that is also doing self-press per GMAT Club questions. Okay. Abhishek says I have not started yet. Okay, Abhishek. So that is you're at the right place. Then good. Sanket is very structured answer. He says I am doing SC, then CR, then RC module by module, and then con foundation classes and live lectures. Okay, happy to hear that, Sanket. Concept basics and OG is what Yashwant is doing. Official practice tests used after enough practice doing individual questions. Great, Jeffrey. So a lot of responses. Thank you so much, guys, for chiming in and sharing your thoughts. In fact, when most people start their prep, this is what they do. The very first thing that they do, again, not many people talked about this over here, but most people actually start by taking a mock test. That's what most people do. Now, again, I am someone who says, okay, yeah, you should take a mock test, but take a mock test just to kind of get a sense out of what is GMAT, what does really GMAT test you on, what is it really testing you on, and also get a starting point. And understand this, guys, when you're taking this mock, don't be too harsh on yourself. It is possible that if you don't know anything when you're taking the mock, you might not do well. That's okay. Accept it. Again, if you're a working professional with a lot of gap between your studies and like the last time you studied or graduated and the GMAT prep, it is possible that you might not do well. So don't worry about that part. Okay, don't worry about that part. Just take a test with a pinch of salt. Take it. Just get an estimate of where you stand. But don't be too harsh on yourself. Let me tell you, I have seen students who started in the very first mock with a 300, improving all the way to 700 plus. So it's possible to get there. And 300 is a low score. Most people on the first mock test, average people end up scoring around 480. Okay, so again, it's not like you will not do well. So take a mock test just to get a sense of what is tested on GMAT and what your current skill level is. That is one good thing to do. But what people then do is they start preparing without a personalized study plan. When they prepare, they do not plan their studies. And again, when we were doing this webinar, when I was asked to send the description, I sent a quote that says most people don't plan to fail; they fail to plan, and that's true. That's true because most people do not plan their prep in a very uh, like proper organized fashion. That's something which most people don't do. They just think about GMAT as another test. Okay, all I have to do is go through some books, study some things, and do questions. In fact, that's the next thing most people do. They focus on solving more and more questions. They start thinking that, okay, if I take more and more mock tests, I'll be having a pretty good score. It's just about knowing more questions and solving them. And they try to memorize from each question what they have done. But that's very wrong. Trust me, guys. Step 2 and 3 are very incorrect. You should never be doing that. Okay, Yashwant is saying average is 480. So yeah, around that number, anything around 450 to 480 is, again, this is a stat which I've not really calculated statistically. I'm just doing just this is some data which I've come across when I ask a lot of people around what is their average score. Again, so it's possible that I'm biased towards more heavy scorers, but that's generally what I can see. So Shane, a person from a commerce background also who is not so good in quant can improve to 740 plus. I'm going to tell you that today. Don't worry about that. The webinar is all about that. Okay. And many people rely solely on OG alone or too many resources. Either they just do OG or they use too many resources for prep with sole focus on accuracy. You should not be just doing that. Remember, guys, if you're just focusing on OG alone, again, OG hands down is the best book when it comes to the quality of questions. But is OG something that you should start with? Probably not, because again, the concepts, the application of those concepts are not covered in depth over there. And many of you said that I'm using the official guides and I'm just solving questions. You'll understand why that might not make sense. Okay, why that might not make sense. So you need to have a proper structured plan of action. You need to understand how the GMAT works, and the intent of this webinar to help you understand that, so that you will be able to create a plan of action and you can actually execute on the plan of action. Okay, so Shailendra, very few universities consider GMAT for MS. Again, you have to check for your relevant university that you are targeting, but nowadays that has become popular. But generally for MS, universities accept GRE scores. Again, this is not related to the webinar, so I'll not be taking more questions around that. In case you have such questions, please ask it in the Q&A. I'll be happy to take them in the Q&A. Divyanka, if you fear giving a mock test, don't take a mock test. Is as simple as it is. Again, I said I'm not a very strong advocate of taking a mock test before your prep. If you think that it will get you demoralized, don't take a mock test. That's fine. Okay. Nishant says, in 1 month prep, I'm getting 48 to 49 in quant, but in verbal only 26 to 32. So Nishant, I can understand what's the problem, and I'll be talking about that. So that I'll be talking about sentence correction as well. In fact, sentence correction is one area which I'll be only talking about probably when it comes to the this particular aspect, any particular specific area. Okay, but I'll definitely talk about that. Nishant, Shakib's next quant webinar, I think on this YouTube channel should be in a couple of weeks, but just write to support@gmatwiz.com. Okay, and then we will be happy to share Shakib's webinars calendar with you. In fact, like you can write to support@gmatwiz.com to even enroll in our newsletter, so that way you'll get the notifications of that. Nishagra, if your mock scores are fluctuating, that's a sign of one of the problems. That's just a symptom. We need to understand the pain point, and I'll talk about that. Don't worry. Let's get to that a little later, as I said in the open-ended Q&A. So in the interest of time, let's understand what is the overview of scoring a 750 plus. So again, this is just a quick overview, and I'm gonna get in depth on each of these areas. So understand that there are these 4 phases of learning. In fact, ideally there are just 3 phases of learning that you have to go through, from 2 to 4. Okay, these are the 3 things that are very important, but I've just added number 1 as well, because many people just ignore step 1, which is planning. And as I said, planning is very critical. So you need to understand how to plan your studies, and today's session is going to be a lot about how to plan your studies in the first part at least. Okay, so we'll understand how do you break down your target score into quant and verbal scores. How do you understand how much effort you need to put in on each of the areas? everything, that is something which you need to start with. Make sure you plan your prep right, make sure you understand the resources right, and then only start putting effort into your prep. Otherwise, if you do not plan your prep properly and you start putting effort into your prep right away without planning the things right, then sometimes it sometimes becomes counterproductive. You kind of end up giving a lot more effort, putting a lot more effort, putting a lot more time into your prep than you're required to put in, simply because you have not planned for it in the right fashion. So make sure that you're doing this right. It is very important for one to do this. Okay, so this is something which we are going to start with. Then we will move to understanding the learning phase. This learning phase is something where the learning really starts. Okay, this is gonna be, ideally the learning phase is where you will end up spending about 70% of your effort, at least 60%, if not 70% of your effort. And this is the most important part of your prep. In the learning phase, you get to learn both the concepts and applications for all areas. Understand this, guys. Learning phase by no means is the basic phase. Don't think so. Okay, learning phase is where you learn everything with respect to GMAT for every topic, and not just the concepts, even the advanced application of those concepts. You prepare yourself in a fashion that you are able to tackle 700 level questions later on. Most people do not do this learning phase right. In fact, they do not prep themselves to be able to tackle 700 level questions. And if you don't do that over here, you'll not be able to do that over here or over here in the mocks. And many people say that, okay, someone was saying that, okay, I see my scores fluctuating. This happens with me. Now, why is that happening? Why are you not able to get the hard questions right in your mocks? The reason for that is not because you have done something wrong in the mock phase or the fine-tuning phase. It is generally because you did something wrong in the learning phase itself. So this is something which is very, very important for you. So make sure you do the learning phase right. We'll talk about that. That is where your learning starts. Okay. The second phase would be fine-tuning. Once you have completed your learning phase, about 15 to 20% of your effort is spent on fine-tuning, where you actually work on your weak areas strategically. And mark my words, guys, strategically is very important. Most people end up spending about 50% of their time on fine-tuning just because they do not do the fine-tuning in a strategic fashion. So this is something which is very, very critical. Okay. Now, what about and in the end comes the mock phases. So this is where you spend about 10 to 15% of your energy and time. And this is considering that you have done the other parts of the prep right. Okay, so this is an overview. I'll talk about all these phases starting from planning and every single thing today. Okay, let me take a few questions. Divyanka, mocks are important, but again, just mocks are not important. Understand this, mocks are an outcome of what you do. So if you do the right things, mocks are automatically going to give you the right outcome. So just focus on that first. Shivani, if you have to join like the 2020 intake, if you're looking at round 1, you should take the GMAT by July end or maximum August mid. For round 2, you can take the GMAT by December as well. What is a good score for IIM Ahmedabad? Rahul, again, depends on your profile. So like you can feel free to connect with me over a call later on. I'm just going to show you the link. This is the link which I shared a little while earlier. Again, profile related calls. We can like this questions I can take later on in the last part. Snehashish, the whole admission process does not require 1 to 2 years. If you prep right, you can get done with the GMAT in 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. Even I've seen students, first time test takers, getting done with the GMAT within 2 months, alongside a full-time job, getting a 700 plus score. So it's not like that. You just have to plan it right. Many people take 1 or 2 years to take the GMAT. There are people who take 3 years, but if you really see, the biggest chunk of their improvement happens in the last few months itself. And most people do not start on the right front. Yes, Satyajit, 2 months also could be good enough. Again, I'm not saying that's a general statement. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own requirements. But if you want to really understand how much time you will take, you can feel free to connect with me. Again, I'll be sharing a lot of details today, so don't worry about it. I think there are a lot of questions which are coming in, which I've gonna answer in the webinar today. So just hold on to this, guys. Okay. So let's get started with the main part. So how do you plan your study? So first thing is identifying your target score. Understand what is the right target score for yourself, and not just the right target score. Try to break it down to sectional targets, because many people actually think about like the target score, but they don't break it down further. Okay, so how do I know whether what is the right target score in verbal and quant for me? Let's understand that. So there are 2 cases which are possible. It's possible that as a student, you are good in one section. when I say good in one section, I mean really good in one section. I'm adding that word really just before it. You're really good in one section and you're not so good in the other one, or you're, let's say, comparatively better, relatively better in the one section. In that case, you should try and maximize your score in that particular section. Similarly, there's another use case which is possible. You can be someone who is equally good in both sections. Let me put it this way, equally good in both sections. In that case, you should try and balance your target score. So let's take an example to understand this. I don't want to just talk in hypotheticals, so let's take an example. So let's say you're targeting a 750, which is generally a very good score for most of the schools that you're looking at. Okay. And Vinayak, you're not late for round one. You're not too late for round one. You can still do it. You just need to make sure that you put in the right amount of time. So you can feel free to get in touch with me to understand how you can actually prepare and put everything into context, because I have to also understand how much time is available with you, what is your current score and everything. So I can help you understanding that. Okay. So Rahul, I'm going to talk about that actually. So 750, how do you break it down? Okay. So let's understand that. So if you are someone who is good in one section, then let's assume that that is the case with quant. Let's say you are someone who is really good in quant and your target score is a 750. It is better to target something around a quant 51 and a verbal 40. If you target something around this is something which will actually help you prepare in the best possible way, because quant is your strength. So it is important that you focus on maximizing your score in the strength itself. So this is something which I would recommend strongly for anyone who is good in quant, that they should be looking at this. Okay, let's look at another use case. What if you are good in verbal? If you're good in verbal and your target is a 750, when I say good in verbal, I'm saying much better in verbal compared to quant, then you should target something around a Q48 and a verbal 45. Again, depends. If you're a non-native speaker, sometimes I would probably cap it up to a 44 in verbal and maybe 49 in quant, something like that. So you should target in this fashion. However, if you're equally good in both sections, you should target something around a Q50 and a verbal 42. That will definitely take you to a 750, because getting a 42 in verbal and quant 50 requires almost similar amount of effort. Okay. Now, in case you want to see, again, a lot of people are not really sure how the different combination of quant and verbal scores lead to actually the right target score. You can actually check out an article which we have written on our blog. It contains a small map which helps you understand what breakdown of individual scores can lead to a target score. Okay. So let me actually send the link of that in case anyone is interested. Okay. So I'm just sending the link in chat here. You guys can actually go to this article. There is a small image which will actually show you the different combinations which are possible with which you can actually achieve a certain score. Okay. Yashwant, again, how many hours do you need to put in for a 750? Depends on where you are at present. Honestly, no right or wrong answer to it. It can take you as less as 200 or as high as 400, 500 hours also. Okay. Ayan, rather, how many questions to make correct to get 600? A very wrong question to ask. In fact, accuracy is not what GMAT tests you on. I'll talk about this a little more. Don't worry. Shrey, if you're in time crunch, you should not leave questions. You should always be attempting questions. GMAT penalizes unattempted questions more heavily than wrong questions. So don't leave questions at any point of time. Again, let's move forward, guys. So now you have understood what your target scores are. This basically helps you in identifying how long you will take to get to your target from your current skill level. So this is very important. Now that we have understood it, let's understand how to sequence your studies. How do you start? How do you focus on this? Why is this important? Understand this, guys. When I talk to people, and I on an average talk to about 5 to 7 people every single day, I come across very wrong thought processes. I myself did the wrong thing to start with. I actually started with reading comprehension first. In fact, I remember I used to do half an hour to 1 hour of reading every single day just to increase my reading speed. I did not know what to do. Actually, that's what was recommended to me. I started doing that. And then after 10 days, I started with sentence correction. And then it was like sentence correction and reading comprehension were always happening in tandem. Like those were the two things I always was focusing on. So very few people understand how it works. Very few people focus on that. And this strong on the wrong foot, and if you're strong on the wrong foot, you put a lot more effort to get there. So let's understand what is the right sequence of learning for verbal, and then we'll talk about quant as well. And guys, I don't want you to buy my words for it. Okay, I don't want you to never ever buy anyone words for anything. Understand the logic behind it, because if there is something which is logical, that will always work. Okay, don't just go by hearsay what is right, what is wrong. So I'm going to help you understand what is the logic behind the sequence which I'm suggesting. That way you will not just remember it, you'll be able to implement it as well. So in order to understand the logic, let's take a step back. Let's understand what are the various skills that are tested on GMAT verbal. Okay, so if you look at the various skills that are tested on GMAT verbal, the very first skill that is tested is comprehension. How well, how correctly can you understand something which is written? That's the first skill. Obviously, as a manager, that's a very important skill you need to have. You need to be able to comprehend clearly. Second skill which is required is analytical reasoning. If I am giving you multiple pieces of information, can you understand the flaw in that? Can you understand the flow? Can you understand the assumptions behind that? Because as a manager, you'll come across many scenarios, many decisions that you have to take. In that case, you should be able to analytically reason with the things which are provided. That's something which is very, very critical. Are you able to reason analytically? The third skill which is tested on GMAT is, can you focus on the main point? If there's a lot of information provided to you, can you figure out what is important and what is not important? That is another very critical skill. As a manager, not just as a manager, in fact, as an MBA student, you will be looking at tons and tons of case studies. You have to read case studies every single day. You have to read, eat, and live case studies. That's how the MBA degree is. There's so many case studies you have to do. So focusing on the main point, identifying the main point in the entire case study is very, very important, is a very important skill. So these are three skills which are tested on GMAT. Now, once we have understood these three skills, let's try and map them to individual sections of verbal. Okay, so let's try and do that. In sentence correction, for example, the only skill that is tested is comprehension. Again, guys, I know grammar is also tested, but grammar is not a skill. Grammar is let's say a concept, is a learning. There are certain rules that you have to understand. But skill-wise, comprehension is the only skill tested. On GMAT, what they're interested in knowing is, can you understand the logic behind the sentence? Can you understand whether the sentence is logical, unambiguous, clear? And those of you who have prepared for some time would already know this, but just for other people, 70% of the GMAT errors are tested from modifiers, parallelism, and comparison, which are completely meaning focused. Okay, so SC is testing you on one sentence, only testing your comprehension skills, not testing your analytical reasoning, not testing your focus on main point, just comprehension. But what about CR? CR, on the other hand, will test you on two skills. You don't just have to understand the meaning of each sentence, you also have to go to the next level, relate that meaning of the first sentence with the second one, see what is the gap in that information, what is the flow of information, is there an assumption which is there? You have to understand all those things. Okay, Tanmay, if the screen is blurry, try changing the setting to 1080p, 1080p. That is the high definition. That will clear out the screen, because I'm pretty sure that the internet is pretty good at my end. But if you just change the setting, it will work. So in CR, you have to also analytically reason with yourself, understand the flow of information, understand the assumptions that are there. And then in RC, you're actually tested on all three at the same time, because you don't just have to analytically reason with yourself with the information being provided. You also have to focus on the main point. You also have to focus on the intent. Why has the author written this? So these are the three skills mapped to the three sections of GMAT. Now think about it and tell me, what is the right sequence? What should be the right sequence for all these three? In what sequence should you do verbal? Okay, tell me. I would like to hear from you before I tell you what is my take on it. But I have just explained the logic to you, some logic, some understanding of how the skills are mapped to the sections. I would like to hear from you. What do you think is the right order of going through these three sections? So Bandhava, it is definitely possible if you can, if you have scored a 570 to 514 official marks without any prep, that's generally a much above average score. So I would say it's definitely possible to get a 730 plus. Just make sure you are putting the effort in the right direction. Okay, Shubham says from subset to superset. Great, Shubham. I guess you mean SC to CR to RC. Great. Yashwant says the same. Siddharth, Ishani also says the same. Okay, what about others? Any other thought processes, guys? Or all of us agree in that? Okay, Abhinav says SC plus CR plus RC. I guess, Abhinav, you mean SC then CR then RC rather than plus. Okay. What about others? All of you seem to agree with me. I'm actually gonna tread in the same direction. Vinayak says, if I focus on RC, then I would be able to do CR and SC as well. That's another way to look at Vinayak. But imagine it this way: if you start with the most difficult thing, you are actually asking yourself to build all the three skills at the same time. Now, if you are really good, you can do that. I have no problems with that. But understand it. When I have to go to the third floor of a building, I go from the first floor to the second floor to the third floor. I don't directly jump to the third floor. So that's something which we have to understand. If you start with sentence correction first, the best part about that is you're just focusing on building one skill at a time, which is comprehension. So if you focus on comprehension, improving your comprehension speed, you will be able to ace SC. That's the only thing you focus on. You get that up to pace. Then if you move to CR, your comprehension is taken care of. You don't have to worry about it at all. Now you have to just focus on one skill, which is analytical reasoning. Okay, so I just focus on analytical reasoning, improve that skill, and I will be performing good in CR as well. That is how you look at the second skill. Now, with that thought process, now if you move to RC and you have already worked on both these, you're already good to go for most of the parts. You know that I have to just improve my main point, and that's how I'll improve. And trust me, guys, I did not start in this session. I made a big blunder. I even remember, like, again, I'm going to talk about this a little long later. As I said, RC is where I focused a lot of my attention on. Almost a day of start reading. And my entire focus was on reading. And I did not work on my comprehension skills. And since my comprehension was not good, I was not even able to understand like I was able to understand, I think 60-70% of what I was reading. And that is why the effort that I was putting, that 1 hour every single day, was completely wasted, because I did not know how to read things properly, how or comprehend things properly. And I was focusing too soon on speeding up. And in reality, I needed to slow down. No one told me that. So I would not recommend any other order. This is the best order for anyone who's starting their prep. Now, if you're someone who has prepared for quite some time now, I will tell about another order, another way to think about it. But don't worry, I'll cover that as well. Okay, so let's move to quant first. Now, okay, now that we've talked about verbal, let's understand how and like how should you structure quant. Now, in quant, again, this is a common misconception that people have. They think, okay, they should be starting with word problems, or let's say they should be starting with number properties and do number properties completely, then move to algebra and so on. That's the thought process that some people have. But understand, in quant, things are complicated. There are multiple topics which are interrelated. For example, if you're doing prime numbers, you cannot imagine solving a prime number question if you don't know how to deal with exponents, or if you don't know how to deal with linear equations, or for that matter, if you don't know what is a natural number or what is a prime number, the definition of basic stuff. If you don't know, you can make a problem. You can make a mistake. Okay, so again, Abhinav, I would not recommend. If I've solved the OG book, again, I'm not sure how will you do it in the same order, because in OG, again, there are questions, but there are not like improvement lessons on concepts and application. I'm going to talk about that, Abhinav. So just wait for a few minutes. So in quant, what you should be doing is you should not be following random order. First work on basic topics, then work on intermediate topics, and then work on advanced topics. Okay, I've just mentioned a few things here, but let me take you to the next screen and show you what I mean by that. This is the most relevant order for quant that should be followed. If you follow this order, you're always working on a skill which you would require when you move to any other topic next. So let's say if you are doing let's say something like permutation combination, by the time you reach there, you would have done everything which you are required to know before reaching there. If you are doing absolute inequalities, if you follow this order, you would have done everything that you need to learn before solving absolute inequalities question by the time you reach there. So if you want, you can take a screenshot of this, but I'm going to tell you one simple way of getting access to this as well, or a complete study plan also. So don't worry about it as of now. But as you can see, the color coding is also done. Like the topics from number properties are highlighted in green, the topics from algebra are highlighted in blue, and so on. So you can see how mixed up they are in when I put them in the right order of learning. So if you follow this order, it is going to make your life much more simpler. It is going to make your learning much more effective as well. Okay, so this is something which is important. So again, Rahul, you're looking at a very specific thing, how to get from a Q42 to 50. I'm going to talk about that. That's something called a fine tuning, which is going to be covered. Abhishek, yes, this is the full syllabus of GMAT Quant, which is tested. All 33 topics which are tested on GMAT Quant are mentioned on your screen right now. So you can check, look at it, understand it. This is the best sequence which is there. Now, what about people who have already prepared? I talked about people who are starting their prep. But if you are someone who has already prepared, how should you be structuring this? How should you structure your prep? Like what should be the sequence? Let's understand that. So if you have already prepared, what you should do is first take module wise tests. And when I say a module, by a module, I mean sentence correction, critical reasoning, and RC in verbal. I mean number properties, word problems, etc. in quant. Okay, so that is what I mean by a module. Take individual module wise test, maybe take about 25-30 questions in each module, and then classify your modules into strong and weak areas. Anywhere you score above 70, and when I say 70, I mean 70 percentile, not necessarily accuracy, because accuracy is the wrong metric in GMAT. If you score above 70 percentile, you can understand that you have, like, that's a strong area for you. And if you perform below 70 percentile, then you can understand that it's a weak area for you. So that is how you first classify the strong and weak areas. So let's understand that like through an example. So let's say you took the mock, you took a test, module wise test, and this is what your test reveals. Okay, these are the scores that your test reveal: 90, 60, and 40. Okay, these are the scores that you got. So if you end up getting these scores, then what you should do is you understand that right now your CR and RC are in the weak area and SC is in your strong area. So you definitely need to work on CR and RC first and then SC. And in CR and RC, you can also see I have not put RC before CR. I have put CR before RC because that is the better order. If you're weak in CR, it's possible that you are weak in analytical reasoning, and that is something which will also be required for RC. So it's better to improve that in CR and then move to RC. Okay, guys. Siddharth, if you're prepared for CAT last year, again, for CAT, again in CAT, you do not have CR, you do not have SC at the level of GMAT is. So I would say you should treat yourself as someone who is a fresh starter, in my opinion. Okay, because SC and CR are completely different in CAT. So make sure that you're following in this fashion. That is better. Now, if you want to if you want to access a mock test or sort to just get a sense of like an idea about where you are as of now, so you can actually take a mock test using our platform with the free mock which is available. You can use this mock link. This will actually give you a clear-cut breakdown of your scores. It will tell you a strong and weak areas. It's not just about the mock that you will be taking. It will actually analyze all the weak areas that you have and tell you like what are the areas that you need to focus on, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses. But in general, what I'm trying to say over here is that take a module-wise test, understand what are strong and weak areas, and focus on your weak areas first and then on the strong areas. So this is how you should sequence your studies. Okay, now that you have understood the sequence of studies, now that you have understood your target, how to break down your target score, now is the time to create clear targets and deadlines. Because many people, for them, a deadline is like this: okay, I have to take the GMAT before round 1, so I should be done with my prep and take the GMAT in by July end. That's how they plan it. But they generally don't break it down further. They might say, okay, in 1 month I will complete this, in 2 months I'll complete this, but don't have so big targets in your mind. Keep deadlines for every single week, that okay, this is what I want to achieve the next week and the next week and the next week. And when you are doing this, it is very important that you exactly know how much can you achieve as well. The plan should be personalized, because if you do not create a plan which is personalized for you, which is achievable as well, if you don't end up achieving it, you lose motivation. Okay, you lose motivation on that. Okay, so please make sure you're creating clear targets and deadlines. Generally, prep time can be anywhere between 150 hours to 400 hours, depending on where you are, where you stand. This is just an average overall I'm giving. This will actually give you a pretty good idea. Okay, so this is something which you can actually understand like 150 to 400 hours is in general what people take to prepare. And in order to create your create targets and deadlines, you need to consider multiple factors. You need to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses, because that will actually help you understand how much time and effort would be required to get there. And then you need to also take into account the time available with you every single week, because if you are working on a plan which is created keeping in mind 40 hours of effort every week and you don't have that much time, it's not going to work. And if you're a working professional, obviously there will be fluctuations in your time availability, and you have to take care of those as well when you're creating a plan of action. Okay. Also focus on the right sequence of learning. I've talked about that. So keep that sequence in mind. Identify how much content you need to do. Identify how many questions, how many things you have to cover in order to get there. Build a skill level and accordingly chart out that, okay, every single week, how much should be done. Okay. I'm sure all this looks like sounds like a daunting task to you, might be sounding like a daunting task, but don't worry. We actually felt the same thing before, like about a couple of years back when we started working on GMATwiz as an idea, because we felt that in the industry, every single player is giving you a study plan which is templatized, not helping you understand how can you create a personalized study plan for you. And that's when we said, we have to solve this problem, and this problem can be solved using technology. And we created a free study plan engine which can be used to create a study plan that looks like this. It will tell you very, very clearly what is your milestone with respect to every single study that you have to do, every single thing that you have to do for your GMAT prep. Clear milestones, clear activities assigned to every single week. What is that you do? And the best part about it is integrated with the course. You can actually click on the start button and start accessing those things that you need to do. And these are activities which are planned for you. It is not going to be the same for every student. It is something which is designed for you, integrated with the course. You can create the same study plan free of charge on GMATwiz. And if you want, you can just look at the weekly task view. It will tell you in the current week how much effort is left. And this effort is, by the way, put by you. It asks you how much time is available with you. And you can put this effort every single week, and it plans things for you. As I was showing you earlier, it plans things for you very clearly, is exactly what you need to do. It tells you which videos to watch, which quizzes to take. Every single thing is planned for you. All you need to do is click on the start button, access it. Okay. And as I said, just click on the start button and it will take you automatically to actually this particular part of the course that you have to go through. Okay, and this plan is not static. It changes every single week. Whenever you log in for the next week for the very first time, it tells you that last week you completed 20% of the course or 40% of the course. And you can actually change the time availability to adjust for it. If you have a hectic week coming, reduce the time. If you have a more lenient week coming, increase the time. And you can get a fresh study plan every single week. It automatically helps you do this. Okay, so in case you're interested in creating a pre-personalized study plan, I'm just gonna quickly share the link in the chat. You can use this. In the free trial, you get there's no charge for the personalized study plan, but yeah, in case you want to upgrade, like access the entire content, there's only 10% content that we give access to in the free trial. But in case you want to upgrade and have access to the entire content, you can upgrade your account and get access to it. But remember, planning is very important. I just showed you one way of doing it. A goal without a plan is gonna be just a wish. So make sure that you convert the goal into a plan of action. So if you have a goal to do an MBA from a top school, create a proper plan of action. Okay, so this is something which is very, very important. Let me see questions. So Siraj, if you have a gap from last year, I would say take a mock test to see exactly where you stand right now and accordingly take the next steps. Okay. Again, please feel to interact with me right away, like directly on a call if you want to get a personalized advice, or you can create a personalized study plan from our course as well. Ishani saying, how can I improve on RC? I've not been able to score well in RC, although in CR and SC, I'm doing decently well. I'm getting decent enough questions correct. So Ishani, first thing, what is the definition of decent? Second thing, are you comprehending right? It's possible that in SC you can do well if you do not focus a lot on comprehension and you focus a lot on grammar. So in RC, generally, you should be doing well if you are doing well in CR and SC. Generally, the only reason why you don't do well in RC is if you're not reading the RC passages properly, or if you're not able to focus on the main point of the passage and you're focusing on skimming. Okay. Abhishek, most of the people who take the GMAT are working professionals. In fact, you can do that. That's not generally a problem. Rahul, if you're talking about the mocks which are offered by GMATwiz, I'm not sure, are you talking about the official mocks? So please let me know which mocks are you talking about, and I can tell you how close they are from the official GMAT exam. Okay, so that was mostly about planning. Let's now focus on the execution part, like the learning phase. I'll talk about that. Okay, Ayan, this is what I was just about to answer. You're asking how many questions right to get a 600. So definitely I'm going to tell about that. Rahul, again, can someone score 720 within 2 months of prep? People have done that in the past. We will have done that. Definitely possible, but depends on where you are as of now. As I said, if you're at a 400 and you want to get to a 720 plus in just 2 months of prep by just giving, let's say, 20 hours a week, probably not possible. But if you are at a 600, looking at a 720 plus 2 months of prep, 20 hours a week, probably possible. So it's important to understand where you are also. There's not a right or wrong answer. If you want to discuss it one-on-one with me, you can do that. I am just going to quickly send you the link. I see a lot of questions coming around the personal advices, so just getting this as well. Rahul, again, like you can also discuss this with me or write on support to know more about exactly what GMATwiz mocks does, but they're pretty close to GMAT in terms of the kind of questions that you get and the algorithm and other things. Okay, so let's move to this important thing that, okay, is accuracy what all that matters? Now, this is something which I get asked a lot. Like a lot of people think, okay, how much do I need to get right in order to get a 700 or a 750? But what we fail to understand is accuracy is not the right thing to look at. Okay, so Kartike, Ayan, all of you will get your answers through this. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna quickly show you a few things just to give you an idea about how the GMAT algorithm works. And why am I talking about this? Because most of the people do not understand how the algorithm really works. They generally have a very like poor understanding of that, and they treat GMAT just like any other test. But GMAT is an adaptive test. It gives you questions on difficulty levels which are like basically uh, dependent on your accuracy or performance on the previous questions. So to help you understand this, I'm just showing you a ESR. This is my own enhanced score report. This is a report which GMAT provides you. If you are, when you are done with the test, you can go for this report by paying a certain fee. So this is the ESR for my attempt for the verbal section. And what it shows is the number of mistakes that I did in each quarter. So as you can see, I have made a couple of mistakes in first and the second quarter and 3 mistakes in the last quarter. So overall, 7 mistakes is what I made in this test. Okay, and you can see my verbal score was 41 as shown on the screen. This was my verbal score. Now let me show you another enhanced score report of another student. Again, I have hidden the verbal score of the student because I want you guys to guess the verbal score of the student. The number of mistakes made by the student is 5. Okay, I have made 7 mistakes. On the left side is my ESR. This student has made 5 mistakes. My verbal score was 41. I want you guys to take a minute and think about the verbal score that this second student would have got. I'm gonna be muted for a minute. I'm stopping my cam for a minute. I'll grab a glass of water. In the meantime, I want you guys to think about, guess the score of verbal of this student and let me know. And Ayan, you can actually get the link for the pre-study planner using this particular link. I'm just share it for you. So let me see what is the verbal score of the second student according to you. So please tell me. All right, so I see a lot of responses. Let's actually read them. So I see Malika saying 41, Siddharth says 46, Nishant says 41, Ashwarya says 29. Okay, Kartike says it should be less than 40. All right. What about others? Varun says should Vinayak says 35. Dinesh is less than 41. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of responses. Most of you are saying should be in the 40s, right? Some of you are saying 35, 38. Okay, let's see the actual score of the student. Some of you might be surprised by seeing this. Actual score of the student was just a 34. Okay, and look at this, what I'm talking about over here. I'm talking about 7 mistakes versus 5 mistakes. I'm saying more mistakes versus less mistakes. And then I'm saying a 41 versus 34. How can you do less mistakes and get still a lower score? Mind boggling, isn't it? 34 in verbal, right? And if you look at the percentile, the difference in percentile is even bigger actually. 93 versus a 71. Imagine, 2 less mistakes is what the student has made, and still that huge a difference. Now, some of you might think, okay, does this really matter? How much this really matter? It matters a lot, to be honest. This difference in the verbal percentiles or this difference in the scores could actually lead you to actually your score could differ by easily 40 to 50, even 60 points in some cases with this kind of a difference, with 2 less mistakes. Yes, Abhishek, it is possible. Yes, Jeffrey, it's possible. This is real ESRs. I've not doctored it. These are real ESRs from real people. Okay, and I'll tell you how this worked. Yes, Abhirag is right to an extent. He said got the first initial questions wrong, which set the level of difficulty of the questions. Exactly, that is how it works. GMAT works on based on your accuracy on the initial questions. Every single student generally start at a medium difficulty. Look at the first quarter performance of both these students. The one who got a 34, and I was speaking to the student again after the GMAT. She told me that in the very beginning she was not very focused, so you were not able to focus a lot on the questions which were there, and she most likely got all of them wrong. All 3 first questions were SC questions, and she was not good at SC at that point of time. So she most likely got all 3 questions wrong. She started at a medium difficulty level, and that's when the algorithm thought that she does not have the capability of getting the medium questions right, and that's why the difficulty level dropped to low, easy, medium. The difficulty level dropped to easy medium at that very instance itself. And that's how the GMAT works. GMAT algorithm is a lot more adaptive towards the beginning than towards the end. And that's why even after getting a high accuracy in the second and the third quarter, the score was not great. Just compare. In the second quarter, both of us got a pretty good accuracy. I had 2 mistakes. The other student has 1 mistake. But you look at the level of correct questions, which is marked in blue in the second quarter for me. They were at medium hard difficulty. Now you look at the level of difficulty that the second student got correct. It was at easy medium somewhere, just below medium somewhere. If I compare them side by side, see the difference in the average difficulty of the questions that we were getting correct. And once you understand that, once you see that, you'll understand why this happened. So the score difference is purely because of the difference in the difficulty levels of the questions that I could get right and the other student could get right. So it's very important that you understand this difference. And not just this, guys. In the third quarter also, look at the average accuracy that I got. Average questions which I got correct were of, again, medium hard. If I bring that side by side, you can see the average difficulty level that this student got correct was much lower. Now you can think, okay, yeah, 5 mistakes, you mess up the beginning of the test and this is what happens. Yes, that's how it works on the GMAT. And someone was asking, I've heard that 500 level questions are more important than 700 level questions. I would say yes and no. Yes, because in the beginning, you generally get medium difficulty questions, which are more towards 550, 600 level, I would say. And if you get them wrong, then obviously you are going to have a bad day. So that is important, no doubt. But is that the only thing which is important? Are they more important than 700? Probably no also, because if you don't get the 700 level questions right, you will have a low accuracy in the third quarter. And if you have a low accuracy in the third quarter, you will get stuck somewhere around the 35, 36 mark once again. So it's in GMAT, it is important to understand that accuracy is not the right metric to look at. And that's why I was saying that anyone who was asking, okay, in order to get a 600, how many questions should I get right? No, you cannot think of this manner. You have to think from a skill standpoint. Accuracy doesn't work there. Skill works. You have to understand which questions do you have the skill to get right. And don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you. I'm gonna tell you what kind of skill you require to get to a certain score. I'll break it down for you, but more from the difficulty level perspective. Skill is about the ability to get a difficulty level of any to get a question of any difficulty level correct. So your skill should be judged on which difficulty level questions are you are able to get correct. If you have a high accuracy on easy difficulty, you are at the beginner skill. If you have a high accuracy also on medium difficulty level, you are at a intermediate to high skill level. If you have a very high accuracy on the hard questions also, you are an expert in it. You are a whiz in it in true sense, to be very honest. So this is how skill is tested, and this is how GMAT scores you also. Okay, so what does a score of 550, 650 signify? So any one of you who is targeting in this range or is in this range currently, you will be able to understand what the score range signifies. The score range basically signifies that when it comes to easy questions, you have a pretty good accuracy over here. I would say about 80%, maybe 90% also. You're getting 80 to 90% questions right. Okay, so this is something which is there. Now, what about medium questions? If you're getting 550 to 650, again, where you are exactly also matters. Your accuracy in medium questions is something around 50 to, I would not say even 70. It's around 70 again is possible in the case of 650. But if you are around 600, maybe around like 60% itself. So your accuracy in medium questions is low, because of which you don't end up seeing a lot of hard questions, and your accuracy in hard questions obviously a lot lower. So this is what a score range of 550 to 650 signify. So if you're targeting something around a 600 on the GMAT overall, what you should think is, I need to get every easy question right, almost every easy question right, around 80 to 90% accuracy I need to maintain. Then in the medium difficulty level questions, I need to have about 60% accuracy. 60, 70 if you can take, it will increase the score from a 600 to 620, 630, like that. And hard questions around a little bit of accuracy is fine. But you really don't need to care a lot about hard questions. You need to care about the easy and medium questions, but only if you're targeting a 600, not a 700, guys. 700 requires a different skill set. I'll talk about that. Hema, there's a question. What percentage should we need in CR, SC, and RC to get a verbal 40, please? So, Hema, there are two ways to go about it. One is you maximize your performance in two areas, take it to a 96, 90 plus percentile level. Then in the other area, the third area, you can score a 70 and still get there. If you require a verbal 40, there's another strategy. In all three areas, you get an average of around 82 percentile, 81, 82 percentile. That's what will take you to a verbal 40. Okay, so what does a score of 700 plus signify? In order to get to a 700 plus, you have very little scope for error in easy and medium questions. In fact, in easy to medium questions, your accuracy should be as close to 90 to 100% as possible. If you're looking at a 700 plus, this is non-negotiable. You cannot afford to make any mistakes whatsoever over here. Again, one or two will still happen. So I'm saying even if you aspire for 100, you'll most likely end up with 90, 85, like that. Okay, so this is something which is important. In hard questions, again, even at a 50 to 60% accuracy, you can just 50% also, you can just touch the 700 mark or 710 mark. But if you're looking for a high 700s, let's say 750 or something, this needs to go up to 70%. Okay. Emma says, how to crack the DC that comes in dying minute, please. So if it is RC that you meant, Emma, then like, it depends, yeah, how much time you have. If you have less time, I would rather recommend you to skip that RC. But if your RC is your strength, you should still do it. How much time taken to solve a question affect algorithm? Not really, Gaurav, in my understanding. As far as I know, GMAT doesn't reveal this. I don't think it is taken into account. How many days it required to improve from verbal 25 to 40? So we know the again depends on how have you prepared till now, how much have you prepared, what is your pace of learning, and a lot of other factors. If you're a fresh starter, from a 25 to 40 should take you about 150 to 200 hours of effort approximately. But if you have done a lot of prep earlier, this could be very different. And in fact, if you're a very good learner, you learn things fast, verbal 25 to 40 can also happen with 100 hours. So it depends a lot on that as well. So you can discuss one-on-one with me to get an idea around this. So in order to get a 700 plus, guys, what you need to understand is in GMAT, you have to get two things done to get a 700 plus. First, make the algorithm serve you hard questions. That is very, very important. That is very, very important. Make the algorithm serve you hard questions, and you can do this by getting a high accuracy on easy and medium question. But remember, this is where not the story ends. This is not where the story ends. The second part is even more important to get a 700 plus. The first part is good enough for 600 plus, but the second part is more important to get the 700 plus. You have to then get the hard questions right. So it doesn't just matter that you get hard questions solved. First thing, get it solved and then get them right. Because once you get them right, that's when you see the score of 700 plus flashing on your screen. And in order to get the hard questions right, you need to build the right skills by learning them and learning how to apply them. Okay, this is very critical, guys. Now I'm actually moving into probably the most important part of the webinar today. How to get to that 700 plus level. Most people have this question in the mind, but very few people focus their attention on learning the right skills or applying the right skills. For them, it is just about getting a high accuracy. But what I wanted to show you and help you understand till now was that accuracy is the wrong thing if you're looking at it. Look at skill. Look at building the right skill, right ability to get hard questions right. And you can only get hard questions right if you're building the right skills for that. And trust me, most people do not do that. Most people actually just think that skills is only about concept plus practice. What they forget is skills is not about concept plus practice. Skills is about learning the concept, then learning the application, learning the right methods, and then practicing. It is more around that. You have to go from here to here and then to here. And most people try a direct route, which is the wrong thing to do. Make sure that you are not falling for this. And let me take an example to help you understand this. Okay, let me take an example to help you understand this. Michael, please ask me this question towards the end. I'll help you understand how you can get from a 48 to improve from a 48. Okay, I'll tell you why could be stuck on that range. So let me take an example of sentence correction. I'm taking an example from my own journey. I remember when I started my prep, my instructor at one of the most popular institutes in India told me that, okay, go get that Renan Martin. That's the best book to learn about grammar. And he was focusing on teaching me grammar, like how should I learn the grammar. And that's what I did initially. I got that book. I learned about subject verb. I learned about tenses. I learned about modifiers, every single thing which was there. In fact, I got hold of other books on grammar as well. Did all of that, learned every single grammar rule, learned exceptions to those rules, then exceptions to those exceptions as well. And in the end, what really happened was I actually did well on individual questions. When I was doing individual questions on these areas, which were at the end of the chapter, I was doing well on them. Okay, that's what exactly I was doing. I was doing well on those individual questions, but when I got the 700 level questions, I continued getting them wrong. And I was really worried that, okay, why is this happening? Why the hell is this happening? On individual questions, I was doing well, but suddenly why am I getting things wrong? And what I realized lately, and then please let me know if you guys also face the same thing or not, if you had also faced the same thing. Okay, how do I actually improve on this? Why does this happen? The reason why this happens, again, I'm able to focus on this right now because I have gone through it. I have improved my score and I now understand what went wrong. The main reason was when I was just doing those questions and just solving questions on those areas, I knew what kind of error am I looking at, and I was able to identify that. But on the GMAT, since I only have 2 minutes to solve a question, and I cannot apply all the rules at once, just because I was focusing on the rules, I was not getting them right. So my focus was on learning individual concepts. There was no common learning thread or application thread which was there. There was no common thread between these concepts. These are all individual concepts working in singularity. I did not know how they interact, how should I approach in an organized fashion, and that was the biggest mistake that I did. Okay, so this is something which a lot of people do. Okay, so Eric, does it apply to both quant and verbal? Yes, it does. It applies to both quant and verbal. It is very important that you do that. Okay, so please make sure that you're focusing on learning the right methods, not just for verbal, for quant as well. It is equally important over there. Now, when actually, like I did all this, I also also got exposed to, or I got recommended some of the shortcuts. Because again, how does a student think? A student thinks in this fashion that, okay, in GMAT, I have couple of minutes to solve a question. Okay, so I'm under time pressure. When you solve few questions, they see, okay, they're taking 3 or 4 minutes to solving the question. They have learned the concepts, they are practicing, they think, okay, concepts are done, I'm able to get the question right in 4 minutes. So I need to reduce this time to this much. Okay. Concept piece is okay. I need to reduce the timing. How do I reduce the timing? They start looking for shortcuts. And that's another mistake that I did. I started looking at shortcuts without realizing what is really tested on GMAT. And some shortcuts which I came across was identify splits in sentence correction. Look at vertically what are the option choices saying. Look at the differences between them. Identify the differences and use grammar rules on top of it. I applied that. Some questions which were taught to me in the classroom, I was able to do it well and good. Wow, this is great. The tutor was sitting in front of me. They were telling me I was able to get them right. But when I used to apply that on my own, I was not getting those questions right as consistently. My score fluctuated, sometimes 20%, sometimes 80%. And I was always worried, like, what's happening? I was like, and trust me, the worst thing that can happen in your GMAT prep if you is if you don't know why are you making the mistakes that you're making. Till the time you know why you're making the mistakes, you can work upon it. But if you have no clarity upon why that is happening, that's the biggest problem that you face. And I was facing that. Similarly, someone taught me skim in RC. Don't read the entire thing. The question is going to focus on few elements. So why do you need to read the entire thing? If you're reading, skim through it and come back to that part again. Okay. And I accepted that. It made sense to me because I was focusing on saving time. But later I realized that it was not the right thing for GMAT RC because 85% questions in GMAT RC are inferential in nature. The answer will not be written directly in the passage. Okay. And when I say 85%, I mean 85%. I've done in-depth research on it later. Okay, you have to read between the lines. And trust me, guys, if you do not read the first time properly, even if you come back to read a question later on, you will be always short on time because you know you have already spent time on reading it first time. So next time on, you will not put in as much effort in reading it, or even if you want to put in, you will not have the time to put in that much effort. And in that case, you'll end up skimming. And if you end up skimming, you will not be able to generate the inferences or get the inferences right. And if you don't get the inferences right, doesn't matter. You can solve the question in 2 minutes, but will you get it right is a big question. Similarly, in data sufficiency, a lot of people jump to statements directly. They read the question stem and they start looking at question statements directly, start inferring from the statement directly. So some of you were asking, okay, if I have done CAT already, I'm doing well on CAT Quant, do I need to prepare for GMAT? Yes, you do, primarily because of data sufficiency. That's a new question type for those who have prepared for CAT. So data sufficiency, in that you have to improve your method again. Very important that you first analyze the question stem, simplify the question stem, and trust me, that's gonna be very, very critical for you to improve your score. So you cannot actually focus on shortcuts. And if you are focusing on shortcuts, it's very likely that you get stuck in too close choices, especially in verbal. And this is something which I call the best choice trap. In fact, I was there in this trap for a very long time. I used to tell myself that, Piyush, you are a rational person. There's no problem with how you're thinking. It's just that in verbal, there is always one right answer, and probably there's probably two right answers. It's just that one of them is better. Okay. So that is something which a lot of people think about. And what you need to understand is there is always one right answer and 4 wrong answers in GMAT verbal. There are no gray areas whatsoever. Till you don't accept this as a fact, you will not see that improvement happening. Please make sure that you learn this. You learn the right skills. You learn the right methods to identify that one right answer. Because whenever you're making a mistake, you're actually making 2 mistakes. You're not just accepting something that is wrong, you're also missing out on something that is right. Okay, so Shivani, I can suggest you some books for practice. For practice, Official Guide is pretty good a book. For Advanced Official Guide is also another book, Advanced Question Bank from Official Guide. You can do that. But remember, practicing alone is not going to help. That's what I'm trying to tell you, that focus first on the approach. If you are using the wrong methods to solve the questions, even though the questions are right, you will not learn from them. So use the right method to solve the right questions. Most people focus on solving the right questions, but they don't focus on learning the right method. So also do that and then use Official Guide questions. They're really good for you to practice, like if you're looking at books. Otherwise, you can also look at GMATwiz questions. They are also pretty right. Now, what do I mean by right method? Let's understand that. Okay, so the right learning curve, I'm just talking about sentence correction right now because I talked about it a little and I cannot talk about everything. So I'm just taking one example, but this is equally true for everything. In case when you're talking about a topic, don't just look at individual concepts. Try to find something that binds those things together. Because when you identify something that binds all those things together, you are actually making the life easy for you. You will be learning a more structured and a methodical approach to solve those questions, and that will improve your score significantly. So find the binding element. Okay, join all this, put a method to the madness, and in sentence correction, that method is meaning. Focusing on the meaning is the key for sentence correction. You have to understand why a certain rule works in a certain way. Don't just learn it as a rule. In fact, I remember in my first part of the prep, I used to focus on gerunds, participles, past, present. I even always were bogged down by that. And trust me, in the entire GMATwiz course, we never use the word gerund or a participle or a past participle or anything like that, not even conjunction for that matter. You don't need to understand those terms. What you need to learn is why logically those rules exist in that fashion. So that is what you do. Declutter the things around it. GMAT is not subjective, it is very objective. It is a very standardized test. You just have to think from a logical standpoint and find the common linking thread. That is what meaning is in case of sentence correction. It binds them all, so focus on learning the meaning. Okay, that is very, very critical. So in sentence correction, if you want to prepare, again, I'm getting to the execution part. When you are working on sentence correction, you first build the meaning approach. Focus on the meaning approach. Again, I'm just showing you a snapshot from the GMATwiz course, but even if you're preparing on your own, you have to do the same things. First step of your learning should be learning how to derive the intended meaning of a sentence. Now, this is very critical for verbal, even for CR and RC. As I said, comprehension skills is tested everywhere. So first focus on comprehension skills itself. Okay, how to understand the intended meaning. And in GMATwiz, we have about 8 hours of lesson exercises, videos, exercises dedicated to just teaching you that. There is a science behind it. You need to understand where to pause. You need to understand what kind of question to ask. So we kind of help you build all those skills in steps. So please make sure when you start with verbal in sentence correction, that's what you focus on. But trust me, 95% of the people I speak to do not do this. They focus right away on learning concepts like subject verb pairs, like noun pronoun pairs, like modifiers, like parallelism concepts. They do not focus on first understanding the meaning. That's something that you need to do. Second step is that once you have understood the meaning, okay, how to identify the meaning of any sentence, that comprehension skill you have developed, then focus on learning each rule from a meaning perspective. Again, try to understand the logical aspect of each and every rule. Okay, so this is something which is very, very critical, guys, because understand it this way. If you are focusing on understanding the intended meaning of any sentence, and then you learn the grammar rules from a grammar standpoint as a rule itself, you don't understand the logical aspect of those rules. Even if you try to apply those rules, you'll not be able to. But imagine that if you learn the grammar rules also from a meaning standpoint, the moment you start thinking about the meaning of a sentence as you're reading it, the errors will come naturally to you. In fact, when I solve a SC question, in mostly about 80 to 90% of the cases, by looking at the question stem itself, by reading and understanding the question stem itself, I'm able to identify the errors. So when I move to the options, I know what I'm looking for, and option analysis takes me very little time. In fact, I've scored a 94 percentile on GMAT SC, and my average time to solve a sentence correction question is 1 minute 15 seconds only. 1 minute 15 seconds only, and I use the meaning based approach to get there. Okay, so please make sure you're focusing on this manner. And as I said, this is not just true for SC, even for RC and CR you have to do this. Even for quant you have to do this. In RC, for example, the first thing you have to do is understand how to read a passage. Okay, don't just go about solving questions. And I have a question over here. For example, Varun says to practice RC and CR, how many should we practice a day? Should 2 or 3 be nice daily? As I am quite average in reading speed. So again, Varun, if you are about practicing 2-3 is good enough. It's not a problem, but make sure that you have the right skills before it. As I said, I spent 1 hour every single day on reading, improving my reading speed, but that was of no use. I wasted 6 months of my time unnecessarily doing that. I ended up with a 13 percentile on the very first test. And that same guy, with even less effort than that, could reach to a verbal 41 just by improving the things that I was doing. So understand, the problem, Varun, is not the reading speed. The problem is comprehension. If you're not understanding what you're reading, then you will not be able to do well on it. So make sure you focus more on first building the skills. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Chetan, again, GMAT Club tests predict the actual score pretty well. In quant, it does it better overall. But yeah, so that is pretty good. You can check out the tests on the website itself. So overall, this is how you should go about learning. So always remember, guys, when you have to focus on learning anything in GMAT, it is very important that you focus on the method part itself at the very get-go. You should not leave the method part at all for later on. This is something which is very crucial. Make sure you are doing this. If you don't do this, doesn't matter how much effort you put in, you will actually end up not achieving the right outcome out of it. You might achieve an outcome, I'm not saying that you will not, but the outcome will be much more painful. Like the time will be much more than what you require. Okay, so that is something which is very critical. Now, another thing, this is again very similar to what some of you are asking. The third myth which is there about execution that people think is practice makes a man perfect. Okay, practice makes a man perfect. I just practice a lot more and then I can actually get to my target score. But overall, I will actually answer your question a little while later, not related to what we are discussing right now. So I'll answer it in the open-ended Q&A. Please ask me then. So why is this wrong? Because understand it this way. When if you're not doing the right things, if you continue to practice more, you are only getting better at doing it incorrectly. Okay, so if you have to improve your performance, and this is scientific, guys, you have to understand what is going wrong, what is going wrong with that, and that's when you understand how can you improve on it. Okay, so first figure that out. The mistake that people do is they will just go after practicing tons and tons of questions, and I've seen people like this. Okay, right practice is important, exactly, Karthik, that's the right way to put it. Right practice is important, not just practice. So focus on learning the right methods. I've seen people coming to me after doing 2 years of prep, solving 5,000 odd questions, every single question that you can think of, like official, non-official, from the best resources, and still stuck in the 500s or barely touching the 600. The reason that is they do not focus on learning the right things. Learning the right things is much more important. Do not just focus on practicing questions or taking mocks. And remember, you do not learn from the questions, you learn from the solutions. Okay, this is another important lesson that I want you guys to take. When you have solved a question, if you try to learn from the question, if you just focus on the options that you marked and why you mark those options, just those options, you try to memorize sometimes that, okay, this time I made this mistake. And you tell yourself that, okay, next time I just have to avoid this mistake. You are falling for a trap, guys. Remember, it will never happen. You cannot memorize all those things and actually not do those mistakes on the GMAT. You have to put it in a structured fashion. So focus always on looking at the solutions and mapping your thought process with the solution, whether you did it right or not. So let me highlight a lot more on this. And this is one thing which changed my score completely. How do you analyze solutions? Let me ask you this, guys. I've been doing a monologue for a lot of time, long time now, actually. Just want to ask from you, how do you analyze solutions today? Let's say you have solved a question and you've completed it. How do you go about analyzing the solution? Let me see some responses from you. How do you go about analyzing the solution? Let's see some responses from you. How do you go about analyzing the solutions? Okay, still waiting for a few responses to come in. All right, I do see some responses. Let's wait for a few more to come in. All right, let's see the responses now. So I see some of you are saying looking at answers in GMAT Club. Gautam says why we rejected the correct answer is what Karthik says. Why we select the incorrect one? Read comments on GMAT Club. Okay. Identify which topic is it from. Read the concept again is what Ishani does. Okay. What else? Let's see. Okay. Solve. Don't check answer. Review with the time you need. Then check the answer. Good point, Shubham. Uh, Conceptual gap understanding is what Dipshi does. Checking multiple ways. If the answer is correct, then looking for how it can be solved easily by watching videos. Great, guys. So happy to see this such responses. It really amazes me with the kind of responses that you guys have given. But trust me, when I actually ask this question to many people, most people only review the questions when they get it wrong. And trust me, this is something you have to do from day one, not at the end of the prep. From day one, this is one mistake that people do. They only review the solutions if they get the question wrong. And the second mistake that they do is they will only spend time on option analysis. They will look at the incorrect option choices, as Varun says, to confirm that all incorrect were rightly understood by me in verbal. The logic being wrong, uh, behind them being wrong was right. Good point, Varun. Really good. But still, many people just focus on option analysis, and that's what leads to not much of an improvement in score. So I'm telling you, how do you master the approach? How do you master the right approach? And it is done through solutions. Number one thing you have to do is refer to solutions following a consistent and logical method. You should have access to solutions, first of all, which give you a very consistent method. Every single question should be following a consistent method, and the method should also be logical. It should not be shortcut driven, because if you do not have access to those solutions, you will not be able to consistently see whether you are approaching it right. You will be then focusing on concept, but always focus on the line of reasoning as well. What was the line of reasoning that you followed? Okay. And when you are doing this, verify each question irrespective of whether you get it right. This is very critical, guys. Don't just look at incorrect ones. Don't just assume that you did it right, you got it right, so you did it right. Don't think about that. There's a possibility that you might have thought in the wrong fashion. So please make sure that you think about, you look at the solution even for the questions that you get right. And when you are doing that, spend at least 80% of your time reviewing the sentence analysis or the argument or the passage analysis, or even in quant the entire analysis. Basically understand how you read it. So for example, if you're doing actually I'll take an example right on the next screen, but overall see how you read it. What was the first step that you did, what was the second step that you did, and what was the third step that you did. Don't just look at the options that, okay, this is the right answer, this is the wrong one, okay, why did I make up this mistake. I asked that question, that why did I end up with the wrong answer. Because understand, the question solution is in the question stem, not in the option choices. So if you're picking the wrong option, you're picking it because you have a poor understanding of what is there in the question. So focus your energy and attention on that. Very rarely people do that. They focus more on option analysis. And note down the variances in your approach. Not just look at it. Note down the variances, note down the differences between how you approached it and how it should have been approached. If you do that properly and methodically, you will be able to master the right approach. And if you master the right approach, you are spending more time on one question per question. You're spending more time per question analyzing. So your overall number of questions done are less, but your score improvement will be much higher. Much higher. In fact, in my second half of the prep, I probably didn't do even 1/5 or 1/6 of the questions that I did in the first half of my prep, or maybe 1/10 also. I don't even remember. Like in the first half, I did so many questions every single day, and my score was significantly different just because of the learnings that I generated. So make sure that you're doing that, and let me help you understand that. So for that, what I want you to do is, I have a question in front of you. This is a CR question. I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to read the question prompt. I just want you to read from this part till this part properly. Okay. I'm giving you a minute to do that. Read this, and then I'm going to show you how to review the solutions. The objective of this question is not to solve the question, it is to help you understand how should you review the solutions. Okay. So check this out, and I'm going to be muted for a minute. You read this properly. Okay, guys, so I guess you would have read this by now. So let me show you how to review the solution. As I said, I'm not interested in solving this question. I'm just helping you understand how you get maximum out of the question. So Karthik, don't worry about the answer. Understand how it is supposed to be mapped. So, for example, when you're reviewing the solution, what you should do is you should ask yourself that, okay, when I read just the first line, and mind my words, I'm saying just the first line. When I read just the first line, what is that I understood from it? Did I understand? Did I come to the same this inference? Did I actually come to the inference that total area of cultivated explored land is equal to total area of unexplored land or not? Did I come to this explanation or not? Did I come to this inference or not? If you did not come to this inference, then it is a definitely a big issue. If you were not able to come to this inference, you have not read the question, you have not understood the question properly. And if you have not understood the question properly, there is a problem. Then you should read the next line and ask yourself that, okay, when I read the next line, when I read this line, did I stop? Did I contextualize it with the previous one and come to this inference that there is a lot more cultivable land on earth than current estimates indicate? Did I come to this inference or not? Similarly, you will actually you have to actually identify and look at the next line. Ask yourself, did I come to this inference or not? And trust me, it's all about understanding it in this fashion. It's all about making sure that your line of reasoning is right. Because if your line of reasoning is right, everything will be great. Now, some of you might be thinking, isn't it this time taking, Piyush? My answer is no. My answer is seriously no. Because if you rush through the question stem, you will save time in the beginning, but even you will end up spending more than the actual time by reviewing the question again and again, by coming back to the question again and again, and still ending up being confused. So it is much better to invest that time upfront, do that upfront long-term investment, and then save time on option analysis, and you're much more happy with the answer. Like you'll be much more confident with the answer also. Shubham, Karthik, I seriously don't know what is the answer. I have not solved this question myself. So as I said, don't fret over this question. My objective was not to solve this question. I just wanted you guys to understand how the solutions will be reviewed. Okay, because we are not going to get anything out of just getting one question right. My objective is much more long-term in nature. I'm just helping you understand that how you should review the solution. Okay, and obviously if you want to know the right answer, like just drop an email on support. We will check this right answer and give it to you. But yeah, this is how you should analyze the solution. Does this, do you guys, are you guys clear with this? Just a quick yes, no. I cannot have show of hands, so let's have a quick yes, no on this. Are you guys clear with this? Okay. Okay, let's see. Karthik says understood. That's great, guys. Great. So happy to know that you guys have understood this. Let's move forward in the interest of time. So it is important that you actually analyze the solutions in this manner. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I say that you should plan your learning for every topic in 3 stages. One big mistake which people do, and when I say topic, I mean prime numbers, modifiers, assumption, anything, any small topic that you're doing, you should be learning in 3 stages. First, learn the concepts. Learn every single concept that is tested on GMAT for that. Okay. Then learn a methodical approach, master a methodical approach, not just learn, master a methodical approach for solving that question topic, for solving that topic or question. And stage 3 is practicing questions on the topic. So just move to stage 3 after that. Don't just jump to from stage 1 to stage 3. Learn the best methods and then only move to stage 3. That will make sense. Okay. So in order to facilitate that, we at GMATwiz we came up with this idea of the concept booster, and I would really like to talk a little about it because this is something which is very important for any GMATwiz student who is out there, and even for non-GMATwiz students. Make sure you work on something like this. What we have done in the course is that we have created a concept booster file for helping you understand the right method of solving questions at every topic, at the level of every topic. So what we do there is we give you one question to solve, which is followed by the right detailed methodical solution, and you are supposed to figure out the gaps in application through the solution. So you review the solution just as the way I showed you, identify what is the gap, then you will get the next question. You apply that learning on the next question, review the solution, identify any further gaps, and you move along. And when you do this, You learn from each and every question and you improve your methodology. So remember, learn the concepts, then the method, then the practice. And each concept in each question in the concept booster is handpicked to cover a different aspect. It is important that we cover every single variety of questions that can come on your way on the GMAT, and we make sure this by taking up different aspects of GMAT, that topic, we cover every single type of question that can come by doing our extensive research. So as I said, the typical learning curve should be learn concepts, learn application, and then practice questions. We teach you that through GMATwiz in video lessons. Learning concepts is always done through video lessons on our platform. Then we have concept boosters for learning application, and then practice questions will deliver through quizzes to you. Okay. So next thing about execution, how do you time yourself and when do you time yourself? This is also a very important aspect. So we talked about concept learning, we talked about methodology, but now how do you time yourself? Whether are you doing things in the right time or not, that is something we will do. So remember, in the learning phase, when you're learning, you should not worry about timing. You should first focus on learning the right method, because understand, right timing is the outcome or a natural outcome of right method. If your timing is not right, your method if your method is not right, your timing will never be right. If you start focusing on timing too soon, it's a problem. I'll tell you why. In the fine tuning phase, when you move to the fine tuning phase, that's when you focus on timing. So if you start worrying about timing too soon, your focus will shift away from learning. You will fall for those shortcuts which I talked about, and that's one big mistake that I did in the beginning of my prep. And that's when you see your score stagnating around 600 to 650. Okay. Yes, Karthik, you're right. Timing is not a problem. It's just a symptom. It just signals that there is a bigger problem which is there, which is related to the approach that you're following. The approach that you're following is not right, and that's why you're struggling. So important that you not time yourself too prematurely. And one more very important thing is when you move from one topic to another, what is the right time to move from one topic to another? Again, this is one question that I get asked very often. So when you are moving from one topic to another, before moving on, just make sure that you take a topic quiz, okay, and identify your strengths or weaknesses. If you're strong at it, move ahead, no worries. But if you're weak at that particular topic, it is better that you focus on the weak parts or weak areas right away. Because if you don't focus on the weak areas right away, it will become very difficult for you to work on them later on. Okay, or in fact, those problems will snowball, because if you're weak on some more basic topics, then the moment you move to more advanced topics, you'll have a lot of gaps in your learning, and those gaps will affect your performance in the advanced topics as well. Okay, so identify the conceptual gaps, but for that you need probably the right tools. Many people don't know that. When I say this, they say, okay, how do I know whether I'm weak in it? And if I don't know I'm weak, my issues will pile up. So again, in GMATwiz, we have an AI driven engine which helps you to do that. So I'm just showing you an example of it. So let's say I'm doing triangles. I completed this practice. I'm just taking this practice quiz, which is the last entity that I'm supposed to do. I complete this practice quiz on my end, take all the questions which were there. The AI will automatically work to actually identify, sift through data to identify what are your strengths and weaknesses. And then it will go to the DB and identify personalized elements for you. It will identify individual short videos, individual questions, and add those short videos and those questions right in your course right away automatically. So you don't have to worry about your skill level as a student. You just have to focus on learning, and that's all. You just do that. It will automatically identify your weaknesses and make you work on those weaknesses first. So you can see below the triangles practice quiz, which was the last activity earlier, you have some short videos, you have a proper personalized quiz as well to help you improve. So it's very important that you work on all the weak areas before you move forward. Okay, so very important, guys, make sure you do that. So this is a little about how you should go about execution. As I said, all of us are different. All of us have different scores, different skill levels. In case you need to get more personalized advice, generally I take into account multiple factors, like how much time is available with you for studies, what is the target GMAT score, how many resources you have utilized, because a lot of people who come to us have already studied for a long time. They have used multiple resources. They have some methods of their own that they follow. So we look at all that. You look at the strengths and weaknesses, the methods that they use, and learning style also, that what is the best learning style that suits you. So this is something which we focus on. So I would recommend you that if you want a personalized advice, you can book a schedule a one-on-one call with me using this link. We can help you with multiple different things, not just the strategy. We have uh, different multiple kind of courses, starting from self-paced online courses to classroom-based courses, and even private tutoring models. So we have multiple offerings. We can help you with that as well, apart from your strategy discussion. So feel free to schedule a call with me directly. This will take you to my link right away. Okay, so this webinar will most likely be there for another 10 minutes, I guess. So let's go to the next stage. And as I said, 70% of your effort should be on the learning stage, and that's why I spent a lot of time and energy over there. So let's understand the fine-tuning phase. So ideally, when you enter the fine-tuning phase, which is when you have completed all the learning of concepts and the application of both quant as well as verbal, then you should devote about 60 to 70% of your time on your weak areas solely. Most people, when they do the fine tuning, they don't do it in an organized fashion. They will work on everything, every single thing. So first focus on your weak areas, give 60 to 70% of your time to that. And the rest of the time that you have, divide that rest of the time between revision and general practice. So let me elaborate on that. So how to know what your weak areas are? That's very important. So take individual quizzes. Maybe take multiple sectional tests in SC. Like let's say we can do sectional tests in SCCR and RC or verbal or quant. But identify those areas, those individual topics into various, divide those individual topics into various categories, like prime numbers, modifiers, and so on. And each topic should be graded whether you have conceptual gaps or application gaps in them. So one way to know is if your score is less than 60% in a topic, you have conceptual gaps as well. So you need to work on concepts also. So just to give you an idea, if you have conceptual gaps, you need to revisit the concepts and the formulas on that, then learn how to solve questions, and then maybe practice 15 to 20 questions to strengthen your understanding over there. Because if you work on these things, it will automatically increase your score. And if you have application gaps, what by application gaps I mean, if your score is between 60 and 85%, then work on the learning how to solve questions methodically and practice around 10 to 15 questions using that particular method. That way you will be able to improve your application. Because if you're 60 to 85 between that range, that means conceptually you're sound. It's just that when it comes to applying those concepts, that's where you struggle. Okay. Now, again, if you're a GMATwiz student, you don't need to maintain an error log, to be very honest. This database is maintained on the dashboard itself. You can come see what are your areas to improve in number properties, what are your areas to improve in algebra, even in SC, CR, and RC. You can see all these areas through this. And you can even see the accuracy level in different difficulty levels overall. So this will help you get a sense of what your conceptual gaps are. So work on your conceptual gaps. As I said, like in order to work on your weak areas, you need to revise the concepts. If your conceptual gaps are there, then review the solutions and focus on learning application. Remember, quality is much more important than quantity at any point of time. Okay, so that is something which is there. And improve timing too. So when you're taking sectional tests, don't just worry about basically solving question. Identify also in which areas you are taking extra time. So it's possible that in some topics you are taking some extra time. So focus a little more on those areas, do more questions over there, and review the solutions every single time to see why are you taking extra time, and gradually improve your timing. And this is where you improve your timing, the fine-tuning phase, not in the learning phase. Mind this, guys. This is very critical. I'm talking about this again and again. Okay, so very quick announcement. We're almost getting to the end of the webinar today. So in case you are interested in a crash course which helps you prepare for the GMAT in about a 2.5 3 months span, in a fast-paced environment, we are launching a new crash course batch from 5th of June, the next week itself. Basically, there are 12 weeks of program which is there. 25 sessions will be there, live interactive sessions, and this is followed like we have a homework driven interactive sessions. It's not like we are wasting your time on concepts, basic concepts and practice in the same session. We will first give you some homework every week from the online course to cover, and then we have advanced discussion sessions on the weekends with expert tutors. So you will actually get a lot of interaction with these tutors. The batch is starting from 5th of June. You can know more about it using this link which I have just provided. Okay. Harish says you cannot get 750 without being a natural. Hard work is not going to pay off. I don't completely agree to it. Definitely, there's a level of intellect required to get to a 750, definitely. But most people underestimate themselves. I used to underestimate myself at a certain point of time. So hard work definitely is needed, but along with smart work as well, is how I'll put it. So what do you do in the mock test phase? So last phase of your learning is the mock test phase, that you have to focus on improving your mocks score. So you in this case, what you do is first learn about the right time test taking strategies and take maybe one mock every 3 to 4 days. This is important. Do not go on a blind mock spree where you are just taking mocks and mocks and mocks. Focus on taking mocks in a very organized fashion. Do take mocks every 3 to 4 days and focus on analysis of each mocks, as in look at why you got those things wrong, what was the timing incorrect, all of that. And when you're doing this, if your score is far away, as in 50 to 60 points away from your target score, work on fine tuning and decrease your frequency of mock tests. Because if you're not close to your target score, it is important that you work on fine tuning right away. Okay, so this brings me to the end of the webinar. I'm opening it up for a Q&A, and I would request the GMAT Club admin. I know another session is there at 9:30, so we'll just be here till 9:20, I guess. If that is okay, we can proceed with the Q&A part of this session. Please feel free to ask me any questions. I would just like to spend about 8-9 minutes and get the questions answered maximum. And if there are no more questions, then obviously we can wrap it up soon. So Michael is saying stuck at Q48. What should be the strategy to improve to Q50? Please suggest areas and point to focus. So again, Michael, if you're at a Q48 and not at a Q50, it means that you're struggling with hard questions, especially hard questions on specific areas. So first thing you need to do is check which topics in which are the topics in which you're getting the hard questions wrong. It is okay to have 1 or 2 areas there, but just make sure you do not have 10 areas where your hard questions are also getting wrong. So try to improve on those areas, and for the hard questions you need to improve the methodology. And another reason could be that you're making silly mistakes, which could be because you're trying to do over optimization on the timing. So please don't do that over optimization on the timing. That also hurts you a lot. Okay, so please make sure you're not doing that. Ritika, yes, this webinar will be auto-uploaded to the channel. You don't have to worry about this. Vinayak, good mocks for practice. Official mocks, the best. Manhattan mocks are pretty good. GMATwiz mocks are there. Veritas mocks are pretty good. I would recommend these ones from my side. Abhishek says, if I want to do an MBA abroad, what score should I aim in GMAT? Again, very broad question, Abhishek. Very difficult to answer. If you're looking at top 10 schools, probably if you don't have an excellent profile, any score may not get you through. But if you're looking at, if you have a good profile, top 10 schools, maybe a 750, 760 can do. Top 10, I mean. And again, depends. Like if low rank schools, even 550, 600 are good as well. So depends on where you are. So quickly sharing the link to actually create a personalized study plan. In case any one of you is watching the webinar wants to do that, you can use this link overall. Okay, and I'm just gonna flash the link for the next webinar also. This is on MBA waitlist process. Sorry, my bad. Let me show this link. This is just shared by. So this is the next webinar, which is starting, I guess, in another 15 minutes or so. Okay, let me see. Should we work on IR in the last? Varun, yes, ideally, if you have worked on quant and verbal properly, IR should not be that difficult. So you can work on it in the last. First, work on quant and especially the word problems, like the averages, the percentages, those kind of things. See, Malika, if you're actually having issues in time management on verbal, it's most likely because of the method that you're following. I remember I used to take about 10 minutes to solve SC questions, 10 minutes to solve an entire RC passage earlier. And now I'm able to do that under 7 minutes just because I'm using the right method. So it's most likely because of the wrong method that you're using. So if you want to discuss that with me, you can schedule a call. I will love to see how you're approaching questions and give you a sense of how to go about it. Ritika, if you have already purchased GMATwiz, which is the combined course that you have purchased Quant plus Verbal, you would have received an email from your mentor from support@gmatwiz.com containing a link to schedule a call with them. So you can use the same link to schedule a call every 15 days. In case you're not able to find the email, just drop an email on support@gmatwiz.com and we'll be sharing the link with you. Karthik says, I have already scored a 720 with a V38 in GMAT online since ESR is not there, but how to analyze to improve to a 750. So Karthik, you can probably get on a call with me. I might as well give you some questions to solve and see how you're performing and accordingly suggest how you can improve. Sakshi saying, what are the best resources to learn concept for GMAT preparation? Again, Sakshi, if you use GMATwiz platform, you don't have to worry about how to learn concepts or application. All of that will be served on your platter using the AI driven platform. Everything will be there. You just have to study. every single thing will be there. You don't have to worry about what to do next, what to do tomorrow. All of that will be served to you, and it's an AI driven course. It will change in real time. Sangwan says it's a good idea to do MBA at the age of 38. Very difficult question. Trust me, there are a lot of factors that have to be taken into account. So you have to, uh, like, you have to actually take those factors into account. But I won't say it's like it's not possible. It's just about your priorities and other things. Ahmad, you can definitely schedule a call for ESR analysis. Definitely love to have it there. Um, Happy Life says, I have a problem with communication. I'm good in writing, but not in speaking. Most likely, you need to improve. Like, if you're good in writing, and when I say good, you're really good in writing, then probably you need to start speaking a lot more with people in that same language that you want to speak. Great, guys. So I don't see any other question. In case you guys have any question at any point of time, feel free to schedule a discussion with me or just write to me on like GMATwiz. Let me write to GMATwiz on support@GMATwiz.com. That's our email ID. You can reach out to us. As I said, we offer multiple options of learning. We have option on self-paced learning, online courses, live classroom interaction, interactive sessions, and we also have classes on private tutoring. Okay. Uh, Dinesh, again, if you're confused about consistency, that could be probably because you're not very consistent with your verbal skills. Again, just assuming this, if you're not consistent with your verbal skills, again, you'll also look into account whether this were fresh mocks or not. So the multiple factors go into this. So probably reach out to us, share more details, and we'll be happy. Okay. Great, guys. Thank you so much for being here. It was really, really nice interacting with you. Feel free to reach out to me at any point of time. My contact number, my email ID is also on your screen. You can use this to connect with me. All the best for your prep. It was great interacting with you. Thank you so much.